Hello friends, you're with a lonesome gamer, and today I'm gonna play Middle-earth: The Wizards. It's a collectible card game from the 90s by Queen Games. And as most collectible card games, it had lots and lots of expansions, and I spent lots of money for that. I have tons of cards here. It's basically made for 2 players, and it's a really good 2-player game. It has roles for solo playing, but I don't like these rules, to be honest. So I decided to make up something by myself, and on the other hand, today I don't have the time to construct card decks, and it's a game where you normally construct your decks before you play. So I also found a way to make it completely random. You simply draw your cards and make the best of it. Okay, I hope you like the changes I made with the rules, and I'm gonna set up the game now. Okay, so the game is nearly set. This is the board. As you can see, it's a map of Middle-earth, like so many other boards. It's divided into different regions. You see the red lines here, like that. And but I will explain later about the symbols on that board and how this works. And then there are lots of card piles. Well, actually not so many, but some. First of all, here we have the resource cards. These are, well, kind of event cards that you can use to help your heroes to fight the bad guys. These are the items and allies and factions. These are cards. If you can collect them, you get points for these cards. And that's also the goal of the game. You try to get a certain number of points. And if you play it solo, you have to, you need a time limit. So I'm going to try to collect 25 points in 7 turns. And I'm going to mark the number of turns with a 10-sided die. So I place that here, it's now number 7, and then I count down the number of turns. Okay, further on we have here the hazard cards. These are, well, monsters or some traps, bad situations, whatever, which Sauron can play to defeat the heroes. Further on, we have 2 decks of hero cards. These are the heroes themselves. One deck with the weaker heroes. I just explained I'll explain later what exactly means weaker for me, and one deck with the stronger heroes. And then I have the wizards here. And at the beginning, I randomly determine what wizard I'm going to play with. Okay, my wizard is Palando. And most of the cards I have, or many of them, are in German. So I'm going to try to translate them. His special ability is he can take 1 additional card. Normally you have a hand limit. In the solo game here, I have a hand limit of 5 resource cards, but he can take 6 cards. And now I'm gonna draw my starting characters. And here on this side are the stronger characters, but also the more expensive ones. The ones that take 6 mind points and higher, while on this pile there are the weaker characters. I'm going to start here, then draw from that pile, and so on. And first I'm going to draw a card, and wow, this is Elrond. So this guy is a very strong character actually, but he's also very expensive. So you can see here this symbol, this little hat here, that shows how many points the character needs if you want to control him. You have 20 points, and this character alone needs 10 points from these 20 points. This hand says that he has an influence of 4, meaning that the character himself can control other characters up to 4 mind points. Then the characters have some, what kind of professions here? Warrior, sage, diplomat, and he's an elf. This is important for some cards. And then there is a special ability. When Elrond is at Rivendell, his controlling player may keep 1 more card than normal in his hand. Then there are these marshalling points or victory points. He gives you 3 victory points. This is really a lot. But if he is eliminated, you lose 3 additional victory points. So that's pretty bad. And then here, these are his combat values. He's got a fighting value of 7. And he's got a body of 9. So the body is kind of his armor or so. So to wound him, you need to roll higher than a 9 with 2 dice. And if he attacks and he wants to hit, he needs to roll a 7. So he's pretty good. Oh, basically this is not true. He adds 7 to his die roll. That's what happens. And then we draw a weaker character, and this is Adratsar. Okay, never heard of him, but he needs 3 mind points. Just gives 1 victory point. And is good if you try to influence factions, and this will give you victory points if you can do this successfully. Then he's got 1 additional point if he tries so. And his combat stats are 3 and a 6, so he's pretty vulnerable. And then we come to the next strong character. Let's see what it is. Well, this is Stein, or Thrain actually, and in this case it's already over because that's more than 20. You see, we got here 10, we got 13, and this is a 9, so that would be more than 20. So these are now our starting characters, these 3 guys. But we can get more. And then the next thing we do is we're gonna place this guy Trine here on the table, and then there will be 4 weak characters next to him. So these are characters that can come into play under special circumstances. Always 1 really strong character and 4 weak ones. So there's this guy called Bergil. And here we have Hama. We have Bart, the bowman. And then there is Eoreth. Okay. If you have enough influence to control one of these characters, so remember you have an influence of 20, and so now actually I got 10 plus 3, so I would have 7 influence free. So that would allow me, for example, to take all those weaker characters into my company. But it's not that easy to get them. In my rules, it's only possible to take 1 character per turn into play, and it's only possible if that happens in his home site or in an adjacent region to his home site. So he would be in Minas Tirith, for example. So if you see here, that is an Anorian. So if you are an Anorian, you can take him at the beginning of the turn, or in an adjacent region. That would be Lebanon, or here, Ithilien, or Rohan. But that's it. And so on. This guy is in Edoras. He is in Lake Town. And this is also Minas Tirith here. Thrine, he has no hometown, so you can take him everywhere. Well, maybe I'm gonna do that. An interesting idea. Okay, further on, these are the cards which allow us to collect points. In addition to these victory points, here we already have 4 points. That's what we have right now. And here are more cards. For example, here, this is an item, the Sword of Braveness, which would give us 2. Or here an ally, which would give us 1. This is a special event, King Under the Mountain. You have to kill a dragon and then you can play this card. But only on a few characters. One of them would be Trine. So maybe if we can get him into the game, we can try to do this. It would give us 5 points, and that's really a lot. Here we have a faction, the Man of the Forest, and all these things are only playable at specific locations. So, for example, this one is only here playable in the city of the Man of the Forest. And that city is, well, it's actually here in the Western Mirkwood. And then here we have Bill the Pony. You can play that in Back End. The problem is I'm wondering... No, yeah, you simply can play that in backend. And further on here we have an item, and there are different kind of items. There are these are major items, then there are legendary items, there are special items, and all the locations, these are the different locations here. For example here, beautiful one, Moria. Here, because that's a very dangerous location, here you can play everything. Minor, major, legendary and golden rings. But in some other locations, like that one for example, the Gem Deeps, you can only play minor and major, but not the legendary ones, which are the really good ones. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to randomly determine on which location these things can be played. Well, basically here it's already written, build a pony in backend, king under the mountain, you have to kill a dragon, the city of the woodman, and here I have to determine here where this can be played. So just give me a minute. To make it a little easier for me to determine this, I made this table here. So here are all the locations, 2 pages actually, and these are the different playable things. And this is a major item, it's called bedeutend. So I take a look here, and on every location that is marked with green color, I could play that. So now I simply roll a die and I find out which location it will be. So, and this item can be played in Burvidu. As you can see here, you can play their items, that means Gegenstände, and you can play their major items, bedeutende Gegenstände here, so it matches. So you can play this item in Burvidu, and yeah. So that's the start. If you take an item here, it's going to be replenished from this pile. So well, you simply try to take the good items and go to the different locations here, get the points, and try not to be killed. That's basically the idea of this game. So I'm using these little toys. They were from some chocolate egg actually. When the movies were out, you could buy the chocolate and then you get a toy with that. So, and they're pretty good for this game. And the start is here in Rivendell. And this guy represents the whole party. So you're normally not moving with single persons, but you're moving with whole parties. And you could split up, for example, 2 or 1, but now I stay together because it's a little safer. And first I try to get some more characters into play before I start running around with more than one party. What I do actually is I'm gonna put Adrazar under the command of Elrond, because as I told you, he can control characters with a mind or up to 4, and Adrazar has a mind of 3, so he can control him. And because I have this complete free mind of 20, I now don't have to spend these 3 that I would normally need to control him. I just spend the 10 points that I need to control Elrond. And then I nearly forgot that I am allowed to draw five resource cards at the beginning of the game. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. And just that you know a little bit, if you are a diplomat, which is for example Palando, then he's got better chances to influence the factions, like for example these people over there. And this helps you, well, this is actually sorcery, and only a wizard can use that, and that simply cancels an attack. This is another sorcery, and the wizard has +6 direct influence, which is a lot, and that's also very good to influence, for example, factions. This means well, fair travel in Shadowlands, and that makes it easier to travel through these kind of lands. And this is a pretty crazy card. It's you can steal special items if you go to a dragon horde, but well, we won't need that right now. Okay, so now we have to think where to go, and as you can see, there are some different regions on this board, and you can move, in every turn you can move 4 regions, but the region you're in is included. So and then there is a special way of moving. The movement I explained right now is called region movement, through the different regions. But you could also move from a haven. There are 4 havens on the board. Rivendell, Lorien, Edelond, and the Grey Havens. You can move from a haven to a location and then back to another haven. And this is sometimes more than 4 regions. But if you want to travel between locations that are not havens, then this kind of movement is not possible. So then you have to use the region movement. This is it's a bit of a strange rule, but there are many strange rules in this game, and they're not made by my solo variant. There are some really strange and complicated rules here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to travel to Lorien, because the sword and the faction here, they are both more here in this area, the area of the Mirkwood or the Brown Lands. So I'm going to travel to Lorien, and here I can travel from Rivendell. It's here, Reiseroute von Bruchtal. And as you can see, there are these symbols here. So every region has a symbol like that. And you can see that here too. There is, well, maritime regions, free countries, borderlands, wilderness, This is a Shadowland and this is a Darkland. And well, the darker it gets, the more dangerous it gets, obviously. And many events, or especially the monsters, are connected to these different kinds of regions. So, for example, I don't know, if I move if I'm in a city or so, for example in a borderland, there might be thieves. But if I'm in a wilderness, I might meet wolves, for example. But you will see that if the monster cards come up. So now I'm going to travel to Lorien, and there are 3 wilderness and 1 borderland. And here is a number written, actually 2 numbers, a black one and a white one. The white number tells me how many cards, how many resource cards I'm allowed to draw. So I can draw 2 resource cards. Okay. That is a, well, kind of a knife or so. Well, you need a special knife to use this card, so it's not very useful actually. And then we draw another resource card, and that is Mathom. Okay, what is that? It's just a card for hobbits, so we don't need that card too. Now we're going to draw the hazard cards, and you have a dark number here. And normally, in the normal game, the opponent might now draw 2 hazard cards. In the solitaire game, you can draw 4 times the number of cards that is written here. So you can draw 8 of these cards. Just let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And now we see what we can play here. Actually, there is a hazard limit. And the hazard limit is the number of characters in the party. So the hazard limit is 3. There is a minimum hazard limit of 2. So if you're alone, you still can take 2 hazards. And now we have these we have these different cards here. For example, Balrog of Moria. An awesome card, but because we are not directly in Moria, this card can't be played, so that goes away. Well, actually it's called Permanent Event. So we could play this card, and if you go to Moria, you have a problem. This is a kind of a dragon, but as you can see here, you need 2 Shadowlands to play this dragon. And we're only going through 3 wilderness and a borderland, so the dragon can't be played. This is called Ungoliant's Progeny. And that's a permanent event, so we could play that. And it's for some special locations which have an additional attack. Basically a little bit like the Balrog. Here we have Saruman the Wise, but he can only be played in free lands. We have the Steering Bones. This is something we could play, because we need 2 wilderness and we travel 3 wilderness. So we can play these cards. And then it's this card here, the rise of the, well, of the ugly people or something like that. And that's a long event. And that says that the attacks of on a shadow hold or dark hold are more dangerous. So we're gonna play this card. And that stays in the game. And this is my solitaire rule, it stays in the game for 3 turns. To indicate this, I'm going to turn this around after this turn once, and then again, and then it goes away. But till then, these kind of places are more dangerous. The same here. Ruins and lairs are more dangerous. You can see this here, this is the symbol for ruins and lairs. So if you go there, it's also a problem. But here, this is a short event, kurzfristiges Ereignis. So that means it's not like this long event for 3 turns in the game. You just play it, it stays for this turn in the game, and then it's gone. And because we don't go to a ruin, we are here in Lorien, that's a haven. So this is not an interesting card to play. Well, let me see. Okay, I decided to play the Balrog. Even if I'm not in Moria and I don't have to fight this guy, it's still dangerous because it says a little later, if Galadriel is not in Lorien, and this is not, this is the case, this is called Side Path, and we have 2 wilderness in here. So this thing has a 9. So actually it's really easy to kill. You can attack this thing with simply if you take your fight value here, the 6 for example of Palando, or the 7 of Elrond, or also the 3 of Arazar, and then you roll 2 dice, and you need to roll higher than a 9. I mean, if you add the dice, the result then must be higher than a 9 to kill these bones. So it's pretty simple, for example, for Elrond to do that. If he wants to do this, if he wants to do an attack, he's got a tap. So you turn this card around, and that means that he did an action this turn. And the character can normally only do 1 action in a turn. And then Palando, he's the other guy, he's gonna do that because you had 2 strikes. So that means you have to beat this guy twice. So Palando now attacks. He's got a 6. He needs a result of 9, so he just needs to roll a 3. Yeah, okay, that was no problem, a 7. And Elrond's got a 7. So if he rolls a 2, it would be a tie, and the thing would survive. But if we roll a 3, we'll get the victory points. So, yeah, no problems, that's a 9. So we also gain 1 victory points, and we killed the Stirring Bones. Okay. So, and now, after we traveled here to Lorien, we are now in Lorien. And this is the phase where we could do something on that location. But because there are no items here or whatever, there is nothing we could actually do there. It's just a kind of a transit station, and maybe in the next turn we could bring a character into play here. So now we're going to do nothing, but we have to discard some of our cards here. Because we have a hand limit of 6, you are 2 strikes. So that means you have to beat this guy twice. So Palander now attacks. He's got a 6. He needs a result of 9, so he just needs to roll a 3. Yeah, okay, that was no problem, a 7. And Elrond's got a 7. So if he rolls a 2, it would be a tie, and the thing would survive. But if we roll a 3, we'll get the victory points. So yeah, no problems, that's a 9. So we also gain 1 victory points, and we killed the Stirring Bones. Okay. So, and now, after we traveled here to Lorien, we are now in Lorien. And this is the phase where we could do something on that location. But because there are no items here or whatever, there is nothing we could actually do there. It's just a kind of a transit station. And maybe in the next turn we could bring a character into play here. So now we're going to do nothing, but we have to discard some of our cards here. Because we have a hand limit of 6, normally it would be 5, but because of Palander it's 6. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards. So we're going to discard one, and well, this will be this card here, Matham. Quite useless anyway. Okay, so we have these 6 cards. And that was the first turn. So now we're going to take the dice, just to remember. Oops, where is the 6? Great. Here we are. Okay. And I'm gonna load this up now. I hope it's going to be a little more interesting. Until now, actually nothing really happened. But, well, in the next videos we're going to come to these locations. We're going to try to grab some treasure. We have to do some more fighting, and maybe the enemies will be stronger. Okay, so hope to see you in the next video, and I hope it wasn't too confusing. It's a little complicated, but well, it's I try to explain it while I'm playing. So yeah, see ya.